Welcome back to Weebology, everybody. I am your loosened up professor, Ricky.
What's up, guys? I just poured coffee all over myself.
I was gonna let it
I'm
go.
your other prof, Eth.
I was gonna let it go.
Yeah, I've made a huge mistake.
But you kind of gave yourself the credence. The transparency is at full marks
admirable,
today.
I hope.
Yeah, full marks today.
Admire me, senpai.
Yeah, senpais admire this man.
So I want to say something first.
What you got?
We were supposed to do 2 episodes here.
Okay.
And I did not watch the second show yet.
I love the transparency here because, like, I told Ethan, he's like, all right, we're gonna bust out 2. Cool. We're do the one we're doing right now this week, and then we're gonna roll right into Great Pretender, and he's just like, I just haven't had time. And I'm like,
And by not having time, like, so work has been nuts, but like we sort of just delivered like our big thing that we've been working on for like a year and a half, 2 years.
If you guys are on the syllabus sidebar in the Patreon, $3 and up, you can go there and check it out if you hit that tier. We talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
so we delivered that, and then so we're kind of like all in a state of euphoria.
So it's kind of like, you're basically taking a celebratory victory lap at work, a professional prancing of victory.
Yeah, but we do have another one due in like
What
3 weeks.
What the fuck?
I mean, you gotta imagine.
Well, take your time. Take your time.
When you work on something for literally a year and a half, everyone's burnt out of their fucking gourds, right?
I feel that, yeah.
And you finish like 1 of 3, let's just say, you're like, nice.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously there's that nagging thing, kind of like the anxiety building up behind.
That there's still other things to do.
Yeah, and I'm pretty bad about anxiety like that. Like, there's a lot of things I just don't give a flying shit about that I probably should.
Fair.
And then there's like some things that like will just eat at me, and I just am the king of procrastination, as I'm sure you all know by now.
We've said it many times before, for sure.
So there's just like certain things that just nag and eat at me, and I don't know. This one's gonna potentially put me in my grave. I don't know.
This is the one. This is the final hill.
It's the holiday time, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess my question is, how are you gonna finish this thing without like us being there? Really.
That's true. And you said you wanted to take.
Obviously, there's school on the back burner here. So that's what's been filling my time is like school, and then obviously I'm playing a lot of Call of Duty. Just to be honest with you.
Every time I get on Discord, I see you on Call of Duty. I don't know how you have the time for all these things. You are a scheduling master of sorts, I would say.
Well,
I guess unless I'm way off base.
I'm definitely better than I used to be about it. I think what's helped is like, this is gonna sound stupid as shit, but the anxiety of doing poorly in school that I never used to have
kind of it made its way into the workplace for you. All right. Okay.
No. I mean, like, the ability to both play video games and still study is not something I used to be able to do.
I genuinely still can't do that. Like,
well, like if I really have a lot to do, I'll just say I can't play today.
Fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so maybe that's like some self-restraint stuff you learn as you get older.
Forced, if you don't do this, you know.
I mean,
the money-making thing is going to go away. And shit,
well,
I can't put bread on the table.
I don't think I'll quite just collapse like that.
I'll be homeless.
But, I didn't do amazing in college originally, like GPA-wise. Mm-hmm. And, I had a shot at basically fixing that in grad school. So I'm just going to give it a go.
This is the redemption story.
Not that it necessarily matters.
Fair.
Like, I still don't really believe that all the hype they put in GPA and stuff like that really matters much.
I don't think it does, even in undergrad. I mean, it really is. Like, you're going to walk out with that degree nonetheless.
Yeah,
like,
I just think there is like a base level where people won't even talk to you, like, as a company.
I think that's a STEM thing for sure.
Well,
yeah.
That's all I know.
Yeah, right. I know that they wouldn't. I had companies that wouldn't even give me the time of day without a 3.0. I'm like, what the fuck? Like,
you had a 3.0 though.
I had like a 3.6, but it's all.
So shut up.
It's fine. Like, I get it, but like, I look at some people that are really brilliant and they just didn't study at all, and I'm like, maybe it's more of a work ethic question, but they would make the best employee in my space if they tried. And I guess that's the thing, right?
I mean, that's kind of how I always viewed it, as like even today, I question whether, like obviously like learning some of the principles and stuff like that, some of the fundamentals is important. But like I think I could probably do my same job without like having gone to college at all.
Yeah.
But it comes down to like your decision making, I think, is really what work and jobs in general are.
And I think college is the time they see how you did that, right?
Well,
I know that. I know it seems well, but I mean that's just they only have so many metrics. When hiring people out of college, they got to look at something, and that's that number is kind of.
So I'm proposing we completely change our education system.
I'm here for that. I don't want letters.
On-the-job training, mother dunkers.
Yes, I want 40 years in a faux scenario. Make me feel like I'm an employee.
Honestly,
ping me later about it.
Yeah,
take it offline. Hit me with bureaucratic nonsense.
Where's my synergy between teams?
I want to optimize these workflows.
Because I think it is interesting. You see all the team like stuff that you work on in college.
Right.
But it's only with other engineers, other computer science people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't it really be like with other types of like employees, right? Like
it really should. You got to learn how to operate with other people that you would work with.
Because
in that
like
space,
obviously
right?
most engineers are going to understand each other, most yada yada. But like when a finance guy gets introduced into the equation, everyone's just like clueless. It's like we're using sign language and they're using Cantonese, and we're like,
Spanglish.
What's happening?
No, I totally understand that. But this is a conversation definitely for sidebar. If you want to get in on more of this conversation, get on over to that Patreon, weebology.com. No, patreon.com/weebology. That's it. That's the one we want.
That's the one.
Yes, $3 and up gets you into the syllabus sidebar. These kind of conversations we have all the time, and they're fun. We have work court, which I think we'll do next time.
Ooh, I can't wait.
That'll be a good sidebar where we talk about the work scenarios that piss us off and see if we have a hill to stand on, a little bit of merit to be pissed as we are. But today, we're going back into one of my favorite genres of all time. If you're a longtime listener, you know what I'm talking about. But for the new students, we're going into isekais. An isekai today. And one that has more merit now than I think it probably should have. Or at least I thought it would when watching the first season or two. Ethan, what show are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about Overlord, season 1. Because that's all I could find originally.
I have notes on season 2, but and a little bit of season 3, but I won't ruin anything.
You can say whatever you want because I don't. I'm gonna watch it, but like, it's not one of those things where like if you ruined season 2 of Slime for me, I'd be pissed.
I feel you. Yes.
But like Overlord, like we'll get into why I'm like very questionable on it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought up Slime because I think it is a great mirror to look against Overlord with. They really are opposites of each other, right?
Yeah, just very quickly, I wanted to say something. We've been getting a lot of comments on our YouTube video about Winter 2021 related to
what's this?
Mashuko Tensei, one of those isekais that we talked about. We were like questioning whether it was going to be good.
Yeah.
And people are like, no, it's going to be sick. You have no idea. You're going to love
shit.
it.
Is it really?
I mean, I'm really reading all these comments. They're like pages long.
Holy shit. That's
all
huge.
about that show.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Someone went off, dude. Holy shit.
4 or 5 paragraphs.
You want to shout them out? Just who, what? You don't have to read the whole thing. We'll be here all day. But
The Green Phoenix 101 and Mark Kubalan.
Shout out to you guys for leaving those essays, man. I love that shit. I got to go back and read those.
And I mean, people have been listening to this episode a lot.
Yes.
I did not realize that. But yeah, it turns out people enjoyed that episode.
That's the winter. That's the winter one. The winter 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely.
Okay.
If you're a YouTube watcher and not necessarily or you'd like to see our faces, I guess. I don't remember if that was a face app, but go ahead and check out our YouTube, guys.
Yeah.
And guys.
That spurs me on to actually use this afternoon to actually make this video.
Girls and girls.
But. Okay. This show, Overlord, like, you and I kind of went back and forth about it, and before we started talking about it and before I knew you were watching it, I had seen Overlord through the lens of just a fan and not a professor when I watched it first. It came out in 2015, kind of when the oversaturation of video game-centric isekais were a thing, and I fell in love with it, but I didn't give any credence as to why. And then you started watching it, And like, okay, so I actually rewatched a good bit of season 1 and I rewatched season 2 yesterday just to kind of get like, what is this show about? And maybe
where are you watching this, by the way?
I watched the first season of Overlord on Hulu, but the second season, I think it was on Crunchyroll.
I think that's true.
Okay,
so
yeah.
There's this weird situation where Hulu has season 1 and 3 and not 2.
And not 2, right. I went and checked. I'm like, that's bullshit. No way. And then I went and looked. I'm like, oh, yeah, they totally sniped out too. So, why is that?
So if you're planning on watching this, just realize you're going to have to find season 2 somewhere else and then I guess return to Hulu.
If you're an anime streamer of any high caliber, you're going to have all of these anyway.
Yeah,
I believe in you. But, yeah, okay.
You want to just hop right into it, or like, what are we doing?
No,
here?
let's just hop right into it. I was going to ask you, how did you feel about season 1? I mean, you had watched it recently, kind of departed from the isekai saturation of the mid 2000 teens. How'd you feel watching it now? Like, knowing what we know.
I watched the first like 3 episodes, maybe like a year ago.
Okay.
And clearly, it didn't like grab me.
Right.
Because I stopped after 3 episodes.
It's clearly not happening.
But
yet.
I just, I think it was Thanksgiving even. I got home from my grandparents' house, and I was just like, screw it, let's get this tryptophan, nap time going.
Yes.
And I threw on Overlord, and I watched the rest of that season, which was shorter than I was expecting.
It's not long.
It's only like 12 episodes, I think, is one season, or 13.
Yeah, I think it's only 12, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and so what I did not like about it, was, and I've been thinking like kind of analytically about it, and I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing. That's what's got me.
I think I have an answer for that, but
so
opinion.
The cast is vacuous, like very, very like,
but numerous.
Yeah, but it's like there's only one character that actually matters, and the rest just feel like pawns because they literally are pawns.
Right. Weren't they always set up to be that way, though? They're NPCs with a little more sauce, and that's no more than that, right?
Right, but that's like, I don't know how they made a show with only one character.
So you don't find that engaging necessarily?
Right.
Okay.
I mean, none of his like actual NPC characters, like his floor guardians or whatever.
Sure.
None of them have any like actual personality. If you like really think about it, they're all like given personality.
Yeah, and I actually kind of like that a little bit, because it's what happened when these kind of vessels just suddenly gain enough awareness to start filling themselves out, but can be editable by the one true actual player in this world. And I found that kind of engaging for a reason I want to get into a little later, but the consensus on your end, you find that the cast around Ainz Al Ghul, not really numerous. Literally the number is huge, a couple dozen characters.
Yeah.
But you didn't find them as engaging as you'd want them to be in a show like this.
Right. So, I mean, but I think the reason is, right, they are NPCs, so it's supposed to feel like he's just alone in this world.
I was willing to concede with that. Yeah.
And so that's where it's kind of like, I'm very like 50-50 on that as like a kind of plot driver, plot point. I don't know. I think the biggest question I guess I have is like, would this have felt different if there was the other like masters of that guild or whatever there? I think it would have been a lot more interesting.
Yeah, in some capacity, right? I don't think they could be the Council of the Tomb of Nazareth like they once were, right? They would have to kind of reshape themselves in kind of the way he did. I think it was season 1 where he pretended to be like Momon, or the fake adventurer that was way more powerful than he let on to be. I think if they did that with the other masters, that would have been pretty cool. Like they kind of propped up organically, they kind of went into hiding to kind of just assimilate, right? I don't know if they could be a council like they used to. It just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.
Well, I mean, I think even at the end of his like reign, he was still the head of that guild.
Yeah, right.
But I think it would be cool if, maybe they had quit the guild or whatever, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there was some kind
they
of
still were pulled into the world for whatever reason.
Yeah, like there was some disgruntled event that was between players, and then they like dispersed.
Yeah.
That would have been cool.
They were pulled back
cool.
in, and there was conflict, and they're like, "Well, we didn't even want to play this game anymore."
Right.
And then the NPCs had to react to that, because one of the main kind of drivers of season 1 is like all the NPCs like being desperate for Ainz to stay with them because all the rest of them have left, all the rest of the masters.
Right.
And so, or supreme beings, I guess they call them.
Yeah.
But like, I think that would have been much more interesting if there was more supreme beings that were forced to come back even though they had already left.
It'd been cool if they almost kind of stood up their own guilds as well post that event of Nazarick moving to like Yggdrasil's or whatever the Yggdrasil, that's it. That once that moved, they all moved with it, and they kind of stood up their own guilds to combat the Tomb of Nazarick by some bullshit or conflict or something they had between players in the real world, like just some squabble could be a thing. And it was almost the kind of the Blood of Zeus feel, where they could be the gods squabbling, where the NPCs or the mortals, they were kind of all there in service. But if you had more players that acted like, Ainz, that would have been pretty cool. I am in agreement there.
Yeah, but what happens if you have a supreme being that created a separate guild?
Yeah.
And his NPC he created is faced with fighting that guy's guild.
That would make for interesting conflict.
Yeah, I think it'd be much more interesting. Because, I think you can view these NPCs as, like, basically children or, like, kind of vessels or whatever that are filled with fake emotions, whatever.
Yes.
And so that's what kind of, like, a lot of the emotional, movements throughout this season or throughout the show are related to the NPCs showing some emotion toward Ainz. And it's like the weirdest shit because they don't actually have emotion. It's like all kind of fake.
I do think that this kind of shapes up. This may be where the season 2 and 3 aspects come into play. There's different guilds that do come in to try to impose their will or impose some influence and conflict on the Tomb of Nazarick. They're the Blue Roses, the Eight Fingers, and they come in and try to kind of do this, but Sabas, the butler-looking old dude, he has a beautiful arc in season 2. Like, really heartfelt. He becomes the emotional linchpin for the entirety of the, I would say the second half of season 2. So they are willing to go the distance to have these NPCs fleshed out, which kind of comes to my main question we'll answer throughout this episode. Why does this show have staying power? Remember we talked about why the fuck does this have a season 2 and 3?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
I think the biggest thing, right, is like the power fantasy of being Ainz Al Ghul.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that, actually.
He really has everything. Like, it's actually ridiculous.
I wanted to talk about him, actually, because as engaging as an OPMC...
Ainz Al Ghul.
I do not know defeat.
Did you listen to the dub at all?
No, actually, you know what? I've never once listened to the dub.
It's kind of bad.
Ainz Al Ghul. Ainz Al Ghul.
It's just like so over.
The sub is clutch. Like, it's really good voice acting. But Ainz, you have to remember, there's a guy behind that. There's Suzuki. Is his name? I think.
I don't know, but
Suzuki maybe. I'm gonna go with it, but.
They're very different voices in the dub, so it's very
in the sub.
Cool.
It's just, in the sub. It's the same. There's this kind of dichotomy, and I think that's extremely important for why this show lands so hard. Because of all of the isekais I've ever watched, this one above all others might actually show a guy who is truly socially awkward, like truly a NEET, right? Truly an introverted gamer, otaku, and
True.
everyone else is like, oh, I've even Subaru, Kirito, Rimuru, like literally they all say that like, oh, we are, we're just kind of like shut-ins and stuff.
But the question is, what was on Rimuru's computer?
What was on Rimuru's computer? That's a really good question. Why did he have to get it scorched in a bathtub? Why was his last request to burn my computer?
Gotta be national security problems, right?
It has to, right?
Wink.
Who is he a salary man for exactly? Right.
Sony.
That's Sony. That is a conversation for a much different episode, which I want to have that conversation. But yes, of all of these isekai, shut-in, OP MCs that are like, oh, I used to be an otaku and NEET and like I never got around in society, they're all surprisingly smooth as fuck.
Yeah,
right?
It's like a little bit ridiculous.
How is that real? But Suzuki in this one truly is the one I believe is socially awkward, but why it's engaging is because he has to play essentially a literal god to these NPCs. He has to keep the act up, right? He has to keep the act up of being competent and confident and the leader that is all powerful and 12 steps ahead of everybody, when in reality, you hear his inner monologue sometimes, he has no idea what the fuck is going on. He doesn't know what's going on, just like anyone else.
Yeah,
I think that's engaging
sub,
for me.
Did you have? There's like this little weird like chime that happens when it's like a emotion suppression that is going on for him.
Oh, it was that the whole. He had that comment about his libido was there for a second, and then it like turned off, or and he tried to test like hunger and sleep, and that. Yeah, that stuff.
There's like a little.
There's a chime. Yeah, that's the same.
I'm about to sneeze.
Oh my god. Oh.
We're good.
Cool, perfect. But yes, the chime is there in the sub.
Okay.
Yeah, there's an indicator.
I think at first that was in the first 3 episodes, and then obviously I waited for a year, and I was like, "What the hell is going on?" He's like,
"Oh, you didn't?" Yeah.
He's saying something weird, and then he's like, his actual character is just being like normal as shit.
There is a huge exposition dump in like the first 2 episodes for sure. Cool. I can understand why you gave it the religion of 3 and then didn't watch it for an entire year. It would be a little confusing and just like, what the fuck? What is happening here?
What is going on?
But who's your favorite NPC in the Tomb of Nazareth? But that isn't Ainz. I have my 2 favorites.
Well, I mean, mine are telling, unfortunately.
I guess I don't know. The thing is, I really enjoyed them. I really enjoyed having them all there. And
I like.
And they're kind of.
Albedo is just like she's really.
Albedo is in the list, of course,
but she really does like everything. That's the thing. She's like so prevalent throughout the season,
right?
That like, yeah, it's easy to be like, oh, she's attractive, but like she also is the whole kind of. She moves the whole story forward.
She's also thick as fuck, and that's how it's gonna be. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. But
yeah,
all things considered,
I'm just saying,
you're right. She has the most screen time.
So it's like kind of unfair. But I like the big warrior guy,
Coyote, the guy who looks like a bug,
like Quixis or something,
Coyote or something like that.
Some shit like that.
I like him because he does something that OP characters don't often do. I think,
which is lose. Lose.
He does lose a couple times, but there's a fight that he has. I think it might be season 2, against the lizard folk, the Shasha's brothers or whatever the fuck. They're these lizard folk that the entire second season seems to focus on this lizard crew the entire time, and this race trying to like survive. I guess
the reason is at the end of season 1, they say we need an undead army because there's not enough people in the Guardians,
right,
to take over one of these nations. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, well, I would feel bad about doing humans like that, but I don't give a shit about lizard people.
Well, the lizard folk, and the season 2 really focuses on the lizard folk. But that
I would hope, or else it was the most misleading final episodes of all time.
No, and season 2 is a little bit. If you want my honest opinion, season 2 is my least favorite so far of the 3. Season 3 is actually looking pretty good. Like, it's so just like the 2 or 3 I've seen, they're coming around on the themes. But the fight that he has with these 2 guys, it's like the final battle between them, and Coyote or like Coxus or whatever the fuck says, like, he honors them as warriors and has so much respect for the weak. Like, he really has respect for their gumption, for their panache, their pizzazz. Like, he really is just like, you guys are like warriors through and through, but you're not strong enough to make me use both my weapons. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's an admirable trait.
He's a very much a champion through and through. Like, he's a good boy. Well, who's the guy in red? Who's the red suit dude? He drives a lot of the weird foil. He has like a tail, slick back hair, glasses.
Yeah.
Desloge or Deslig or Derlange. Yeah. I'm gonna go
something like that.
I'm gonna go with
Deranged boy.
Lagrange, ZZ Top, and he's got
the diamond eyeballs.
Yes, and he drives a lot of the internal conflict forward. He's not a bad foil. I don't mind him. But
yeah, I think the weakest character for me is probably Shoutier. Actually,
I was gonna say she's in my top. How you feel? Why do you think she's weak?
Well, she's like the strongest character in the whole show, and it's kind of like ridiculous.
Sure, yeah. And there was what was the one chick that attacked him early on that he squeezed to death? Clementine, or the chick that the short brown blondish hair that attacked him, and Ainz basically squeezed her to death. Do you remember? Like, he basically gave her a bear hug in their battle. I think it's Clementine. I think that was her name. But
I can't recall.
She was like an assassin essentially. But that was one of my favorite fights in the entire. But she didn't know he was a lich. So she tried to stab him in the face, and she got him in the skull.
Yes,
sky
yes.
eyeballs. Yeah.
Yes.
That was a badass fight.
She was like the crazy.
Yes, she was nuts.
Crazy like cultist.
Yes.
That was good. I agree. That was awesome.
But I'm shocked you weren't the biggest fan of Shalltear. I liked her a lot. I think she was kind of a window into the powers of this world that Ainz didn't know yet. The whole mind control of a vampire is not something he'd ever experienced even in his old world.
No. He was basically saying he didn't expect like the world powers or whatever the hell to translate into Yggdrasil or whatever he was.
Right. It somehow had an effect on those characters.
Yeah,
Right.
And he was like, oh shit. I have miscalculated.
Right. And for him to say that is kind of a big deal for an OPMC, right? It's just like, oh shit, kind of fucked up there a little bit, but
Shalltear blood fallen. I just don't like her vampire transformation. I think it's like a little too lamprey.
It's pretty lamprey. Yeah. That's actually a good way to put it. And think about that.
I looked it up online. Like I was looking up something about her.
Yeah.
And it said, her mouth looks lamprey-like. I'm like, it does.
It totally does. In the second season, actually, it's really bad because her punishment is that she becomes his throne, like his seat.
What the fuck?
And she is like
into it,
getting her rocks off on it, and like
she basically wants it bad.
Albedo basically goes and like, please excuse me really quick, goes in the other room, just trashes the place out of anger, and comes back and says, hey twins, I kind of ran into the wall and it's gone now, so can you fix that real quick? Thank you. So how did you feel about this whole kind of like faux harem of sorts, like a harem built in?
I mean, it led to some like funny scenes and stuff, but it's like, it's creepier because he literally made them do it.
Yeah, he made Albedo madly in love with himself, right?
Yeah.
And he did it out of a test and never reverted it back, right? He always could switch it back.
Yeah.
But he never did. Why? Because he's the awkward shut-in. This all tracks for Suzuki, not Ainz.
He's also not doing anything about it. Like, it's weird, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sold on that kind of
I know. Yeah.
The like faux harem situation.
And I did like the whole him going undercover as an adventurer that was weaker than he was supposed to be, because it's like another layer of playing up an act, right? He had to pretend like he was a real human being has to pretend that he is an all-powerful necro god, pretending to be a like so adventurer just to kind of interact with the world as it stands.
Well, he went from bronze plate to literally like Orichalca or whatever the hell it's called in one mission. So I don't think he was really playing up that he was weaker. It's just the way that it works. You have to like,
of course, but like
through.
He played the system, but he had to get in like real weak, like to rise the ranks.
You had to get in on the ground.
You gotta get on the bottom of the totem pole, dude, and then rise to the top organically.
Started off working at McDonald's,
and then got himself as a CEO position in one fucking episode.
One fell swoop.
Yeah, but this show as
Orichalcum, I think is what it's called.
Orichalcum, yeah.
I don't know. I'll look it up for YOLOs.
To this day, I saw season 1 like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years, and I still remember every detail of season 1, basically. It stuck with me, but I don't know why. To this day, I don't understand why. I don't know what the staying power of this show exactly is. Part of me thinks that it's a OPMC isekai where it really does feel like a guy in the driver's seat and not the character itself, right? He's kind of operating in a world that he is one level removed from. At any point, he could log out. I think.
I don't think so.
So you think he's stuck there?
I do believe he's stuck there.
Okay, so he is stuck there, but just the fact that like his inner monologue is so different than the guy that is being portrayed in this world, that disparity makes it a little bit more engaging for me, because this is what I imagine a game-centric isekai to really be, right? You have a character that you're OP in, and you suddenly get trapped in that character that you built from the ground up. Okay, you now have to somehow be a leader for sentient NPCs. Okay, this all tracks. This is what a real-world isekai might look like if it is part of a game.
I don't know, man. I think like that's an easy thing to be. The leader of NPCs, they're going to do whatever you say. They're not going to question you whatsoever.
I guess the conflict internally comes with, this is a real world now. They're not quite NPCs anymore, right? These are real people that are really counting on me, and you play it long enough, you can't really remove yourself anymore, like you're just a player, right?
Yeah, but like he's been playing this game for 15 years or whatever the hell.
Yeah, right.
I think he gets it. What I think is the interesting part about this show is the way they form this world that they're in, and he's like testing things to figure out like what carries over from Yggdrasil and what doesn't.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And he's got these like weird situations where he's like, their magic is terrible, but they have like world level items.
Right, exactly.
And so this is like this very interesting dichotomy between what he's expecting and what is actually happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then in situations like that where the magic's bad and they're freaking out about stage 5 magic or whatever, and he can do stage 11,
Yeah, it's like super tier bullshit.
Yeah,
you can't even touch me right now.
And they're like, that's a complete joke. Super tier doesn't even exist. And he's like, right.
Fall down.
And I don't know. I just think it's interesting, like coming into a new world where some of the things from his game is translated over somehow.
Right.
But a lot of them haven't. Like, that's what's interesting, is figuring out, like, he's kind of having to test the waters the whole way through this first season to figure out, like, what's true, what isn't, what's going on, really. You remember the spirit of the forest or whatever, the god king of the forest.
Yeah.
It's just like this dumbass hamster weak thing.
Master.
Hamskis.
But then, like, they pull out, like, a summoning crystal for the most powerful angel they can find, and he can literally smack it down with fall down with super tier magic. But I actually never even considered that. I think it's a pretty cool concept where it's kind of not really an isekai. It's not even like I'm not going from my world to another world. I was already playing in another world. I just kind of hop ship to another world that's a little bit more real,
It's like a sort of Inception isekai where he was already in one and he's gone a layer deeper now. And so I did find that interesting, and I think, I don't know obviously, but I think that obviously would continue to be something that plays a role as it goes.
In season 3, he finally figures out, like, oh shit, am I accidentally taking over the world?
I mean, obviously, yeah.
He didn't even consider it up to that point, which makes me beg the question to you, is Ainz Al Ghul a villain? Is he a villain? Because season 1, he does some good acts. Like, he does some good acts for the general populace.
So I always find this as like a hard question, like the morality of a person playing in an isekai.
Yeah, right.
It's all fake to them, right? Like,
but
when they start.
At what point is it not? That's
the question. That's what makes morality hard to explain in the context of an isekai.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if you think about it from the beginning, like, everyone views them as like tools and things like that. Like, look at Naofumi.
Perfect example. Mm-hmm.
The whole world is nothing to him, right? And even, the slavery of Raphtalia,
dabble a little debauchery,
stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
But then you form these bonds with these things. I think, as a human psychology in general, you get attached to, like, your cell phone. You get attached to...
Put a face on your backpack. You call it Packy. No big deal. I'm not saying I've done this, but whatever. Keep going.
I'm just saying, there's certain things I'm sure you could get attached to.
Of course.
And especially things that can talk back to you.
Have you ever named your car? You ever given your car any names?
I've never.
I've given my car a name every car I've owned.
Yeah,
I feel
you're
that.
A freaking weirdo.
I don't think that's that weird. People will know. Like, a lot of my friends give their car names. Like, the one I have right now is named Barry. He's a plain dude, but he gets the job done.
He sounds very run-of-the-mill.
He really is a run-of-the-mill dude, but he's got heated seats, so he's got that going for him,
Good for
guess.
Barry.
Good for Barry. Yeah. But yeah, I do get what you're saying, is that at some point, you know, when you kind of, if you were kind of that MC in an isekai, it's very easy to think, like, this is just a virtual world. This isn't my world, therefore these aren't real things. But there is always a flipping point, right?
Well, so this is why I think when we look back at Shield Hero, they did amazingly well.
Right.
Right? Those 3 other champions went in that world and just, they did whatever they had to do, but they didn't care about all the consequences, right?
They illustrated that by talking about how it feels like a game from their respective Japans. So they all came in with a game feel, right?
Yeah, but every single thing that they saved, right? Like they killed the dragon, but then that poisoned the water that did something else.
They didn't give a shit. They just they did the deed. Yeah, they're done.
And then now Fumi had to come by and clean up all the bullshit.
Right.
I think that, you know, they went a little deeper into this kind of idea of like, well, I can do whatever I want in this world and it won't matter because, you know, I'm the
hero.
I'm one of the 4 heroes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in Overlord, like he feels the same way in the beginning where it just seems like doesn't really give a shit about much about this new world.
Exactly.
He's just very like interested in figuring out what's going on with it, not necessarily caring about like his impact on it. But he also, like, I think to his credit though, he comes in as like a complete unknown, a complete nobody compared to these big nations that are around. And so when you take over nations because you're extremely powerful, I think it would happen when like, for instance, that whatever the religious one was, they were like pretty evil.
The Shade Theocracy, I think they're called.
Something like that.
Yeah, the Slate Theocracy or something like that.
That's closer. Slain?
The Slain the Slain Theocracy. Yeah, that's it.
They're like aggressors in the beginning toward him, right?
Right. And they're very angry.
So taking them over isn't a big deal. It doesn't feel like that's necessarily morally abject. But then, you know, you start chaining those along, and then in the second season they're trying to just wipe out all these lizard boys so they can use them for their armies. Then you're starting to think, wow, I'm like,
You made me think that this show actually does a really good job of going
dominoes.
Yeah, like it gets less black and white. It gets more and more gray as it goes on, right? And that's why the question of, is Ainzangula an actual villain? Because he does these altruistic acts for the general public sometimes. He goes ahead and completely wipes out these organizations that others like, but he's looked at like a necromancer, a lich, and, you know, historically evil, but put in situations where they're more gray, where the morality isn't quite black and white, and he's the driving force for sometimes really good outcomes for some people, big groups of people, villages, the Goblin Village and everything, and he just helps people out. And
yeah, I'm pretty confused on his character because he is like, I would say objectively amoral. He's just doing things that he thinks are good for him.
That's what it is. I think that's why this is compelling for me, is because Suzuki, the guy behind the mask, is at odds with the man that he's playing, right? He's playing this all-powerful necro god, but he, in and of himself, really doesn't want to hurt anybody, and he kind of just wants to protect the people close to him. So he's kind of at odds with the character he's keeping up for his guild, and, you know, that allows him to kind of straddle this line of villain and hero-ish? Question mark? He's not. Would you call him a hero, though? That's the thing. I don't know if I'd call him a hero.
I mean, so
he's kind of an anti-hero in my eyes.
I think a lot of the problem is, right, his actual character model is quite
it's quite
villainous looking.
Yes, very spooky.
And so, you know, like I don't know, man. The show is like very, like, I would say run of the mill in a lot of ways. Like, there's a few interesting aspects, but there's nothing that's like blown me away about it at all.
I think
stacking spells was cool, I guess, and then he does it every time, and it's like, well,
I wanted to bring up something that I actually watched I think it was maybe a week or two ago, because I knew we were trying to do this or something. Mother's Basement had a video from 2 years ago, and he brought up the creator's name, and I looked him up, and he is an avid avid Dungeons and Dragons player. He was a DM for a group of people, and the only reason why he started writing Overlord was because the people in his DM group didn't have time to play. So he wrote instead, and that's where Overlord was born from. So, taken from that lens, this show is very D&D. Very D&D, because stacking spells, different races, guilds, parties, different very clear-cut assassin, mage, sorcerer, ranger, everything, races, everything. All this stuff is truly kind of plucked from D&D and reimagined for an anime and manga space, or light novel space in this case. But I really think that if you are out there, any student that is a huge D&D person, this is your show. You will see the stacking of spells, the strategy of usages, the playfulness of rules and limitations of certain spells and skills. This is your mode. This is your thing, I think.
So I would agree, except for the fact that we don't know any of the information. So it makes it kind of like they pull it out of thin air. Whereas if it was established that these are his skills, and then we could see it as he plays through the game, basically, see that he uses these skills and how he does it, that'd be more interesting to me than just like, because like for instance in the fight against Shoutier, and
this is what I wanted to bring up. That fight is exemplary for this conversation.
Yeah, but we don't know of any of these spells, so he just like spews a bunch of garbage, and then you're like, well, I guess that's good.
It wasn't necessarily about knowing what he can do. It's more about looking at how he did it. In the buff spells he threw in, he had false data to make her think that his MP and his HP was off in a way that would be in at his advantage. He said holy defense and not fire defense to try to make it fake what he's actually weak against and what he's not, to make her use certain things in certain ways. This is what a good D&D player would do, right? They would kind of look at the language, look at who they're up against, and then kind of tweak the battle in their direction by being sly with the mechanics of the game. I don't think it goes as far as Log Horizon does with game mechanics, but it goes far enough that a D&D advocate would see this, appreciate it, and have a good time with it, I think.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just wish, like, for instance, in that situation you just said, he focused on holy defense and not on fire defense. If we had been told in the beginning, hey, I'm a lich, I'm weak to fire and weak to holy, and then he explains like why he did it afterwards, we'd be like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
But for instance, when you just go into it and you're like, okay, Ainz, tell us what's up.
yeah, okay.
You know, and like he explains what he did after the fact, it just doesn't feel as impactful or interesting. Like, yeah, he did it, cool, but I mean, I don't know. If they established a little bit more about his character, his world, whatever, maybe the strengths and weaknesses, I think that would have been a much more impactful piece of the puzzle. For instance, if you play a D&D campaign or you listen to one on a podcast or something,
as we do,
you grow with the character.
Of course,
you know what their strengths and weaknesses are from day one, and then when they do interesting things with their spell slots and stuff like that, it's cool because you're like, oh yeah. So
I think what you just said is 100% true, but you got to remember that you are coming at it from a season 1 perspective. That season 1 was letting you know of his weaknesses and not. And season 2 and I don't know if 3 quite yet, but 2, at the end of 2, they definitely play on that more. But now that you know it, it does feel a little more rewarding.
Well, so I think it was garbage introduction of that. I understand he's a level 20 character coming into this.
Essentially, yes, right.
But like, what the fuck?
I don't know. And it's funny you bring it up in that manner because, yeah, I think this, one of the main gripes, if not my biggest gripe, is something I'm going to pull from Mother's Basement's video because I found, and I promise I wouldn't pull too much from that, but the way he said it was great. And then storytelling. It wasn't a natural occurrence a lot of the times, things that would come up that would be a conflict for Ainz, or the ways he got out of conflict. But it just happened to be like, oh, and then this happens. Oh, and then I happen to be weak against this thing and not this thing, and ha ha ha, deal with it. And then literally that. It's just kept kind of grinding the way it is, and there are ways definitely to do an OPMC with a little more tact than that. And we've seen more tact. I would think Misfit is a good way to deal with a little more storytelling with an OPMC. But this,
I don't know. There's just something hollow about the show, and I don't know if it's the cast or if it's the system
or
that I've seen
Ainz's
so far.
bony body.
Well, I mean, like, honestly, right?
Right.
And I mean, like, to be honest, I watched it and it was okay, but I didn't like super enjoy it. I don't know who would have watched season 1 and been like, I need a season 2, unless they're like thinking of Albedo.
All I'm saying is
saying, like, what?
I think what it did for me is that we don't know at the end of season 1 jack shit about the world that he's in now.
Well,
Truly,
we
don't.
Worries me.
No,
I think an entire season in a show and you haven't said anything about it.
But he's just testing the water. He's just dipping his little bony phalanges into that lake that we call the new world, and it's kind of what you said. Like, he's just testing out things, and he's already learned that at the end of the season there is magic or world items that exist that can affect the people, the NPCs in his guild. So that is something needing to be explored. Season 2 kind of does that a little bit. But I think season 3 is going to be it. I think season 3 really is. I haven't finished it yet. Only a couple episodes in, but I think that's going to be the season where they really go full hog on, okay, what the fuck is up with this world? What's really going on here that can affect me? And how is it possible that my Tomb of Nazarick people can be affected by this other world's magic in that capacity? I think that's their only avenue, I would say. And it's a good avenue. It's not
Perhaps.
bad. Yeah, it's a good avenue.
I think this is more spoiler territory, but we're like 48 minutes in, so YOLO. The thing that was most interesting to me about season 1 was that little group that they joined as an adventurers when they were still bronze plates.
I like that a lot.
They were like pretty interesting, cool guys. And then I never expected them to die in the manner that they did, even when I knew there was bad stuff coming. And
then once they all died, he's just like, all right, it's time to do the things, time to crush.
But he also, like, this is what I kind of mean by he didn't really give a shit about the world. Like, he spent all that time with them.
And he didn't use the power to protect them, but only avenge them.
Well, he didn't seem to give
a
shit when they died.
Right,
like,
right.
He was just like, wow, I can't believe you did that to them.
Is
so
that
sad.
The villain aspect of it? It's just like that blasé, like, oh no, my companions died. Not even
right,
friends.
And they're like, well, there's your friends. He's like, I knew him for a day.
Yeah, that's all right, yeah.
But like, if he was a true hero, right? I think this is where the question is he a hero or not really plays a massive role.
Right.
If he was a true hero, he'd be like, I could have known him for 5 seconds and I still would try to protect them or I'd avenge them and stuff like that, right? And in this scenario, he doesn't seem to give a flying shit about them. And I was confused about one point too. The 2 guys were obviously dead, but the girl, the little mage girl, who they thought was a guy or whatever, he said, oh, she was still alive. Maybe it was a translation error or something.
I don't think it was a translation error.
Well, I don't think she was dead as shit.
She was pretty dead as shit.
An hour or like 2 seconds later, so I was confused why you would even say that. You could say they tortured her rather than, anyway.
Right. I get what you're saying.
But also, she had one of those abilities, the, I don't know what they call them. Innate talents or something,
where you can learn magic in like 4 years that would take 8 years for others.
There was something
like that.
Innate talent where the one guy can use any magical item with no downside.
That's rad. Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
Hers was like something about magic.
Hers was she had like an expedited training where basically if a magical spell took you 2 years to learn, it would take her 1 year, literally half the time required to learn something.
Yeah.
So,
bro.
So all things considered in this show, I think the compelling aspects of it is, one, if you're in the D&D and high fantasy and maybe a little bit of the mechanical aspects, you will enjoy this show. We kind of dissected why it has staying power. I think it does have staying power, but where I'm landing is Ainz Al Ghul's kind of it's almost a controlled identity crisis, right? It's not really a villain, not really a hero, but the author knows where they want this character to be in that ambiguous zone. And I think that's compelling because you have two people arguing within themselves for who's who. You have Suzuki, this neat fucking otaku who's just kind of this really kind of blasé, reserved dude. And then the guy he's playing for the NPCs, which is this big, badass, necrotic god that he has to be a villain about. And I think both of those at odds with each other makes it compelling. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
They didn't show enough of that. I think season 1 was not enough to give them a season 2. I don't know how. I think literally like character designs are the reason there's a season 2. I'll be honest with you.
Yes. No, the characters were
I think the world was kind of
awesome.
weak. It wasn't explored enough. There was a couple cool questions from it, but there was not enough exploration of it.
Okay.
And then just overall, I think it was like a pretty bland story. I think like I'm going to go ahead and rate it.
Okay, give it to me.
7.2, 72 out of 100.
Okay. I'm going to give it an 83 out of 100 super tier magic spells.
Interesting.
And I think what it is I'm coming at it from the perspective of seeing a season and change ahead of you, seeing where the world gets fleshed out. I think you're 100% right. For season 1, if you just watch those first 12 episodes, you see the future set out before you, but they don't do the work of keeping you around for another season. They obviously got, but they must have done something right? They must have done something.
I think it's because he was a cool character and they could sell the little thingamajigs, figurines of him and Albedo.
The Funko Pops, the fucking Eins.
No, the other ones that are like 20 grand.
The one that Nick from Anime Summit has a lot of, or
Nindroids?
No, yeah, something like that. He has like other figures.
I mean like legit ones.
Okay. Yeah, they sell a lot of figures of the ones from this show for sure. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Anyway, so yeah, that was a good ep. But I just wanted to do a little PSA.
Oh, public service announcement.
I did not know this, but apparently Ready Player One has gotten a much clamored after sequel.
No.
Came out last week.
Book?
Yes.
Fuck yeah, I want to read that.
At the top slot of the New York Times bestseller.
Okay.
It's called Ready Player 2.
I was just going to ask that. Yeah. Okay. Ready Player 2.
It shall arrive in 2 days, and I shall read it.
I think I might have to give it a look-see myself. That sounds rad as fuck. For me, a new game that came out this past week, Immortals Phoenix Rising.
No, yes.
Yeah, think Greek mythology and Zelda Breath of the Wild had a love child, given Ubisoft's weird fucking lens on it, but it is quite a fun game, and I recommend anyone who likes Breath of the Wild to actually go play this game.
Also, in 4 days from today, Sunday the 6th, Cyberpunk 2077. Yeah, boy, we'll be playing
happy Cyberpunk week, baby!
I will probs be posting my vids on the YouTube if you'd like to watch my playthrough of that.
Ooh, you gonna stream? You gonna stream, my boy?
I could stream. It doesn't matter.
Not stream, just kind of let's play it up, essentially.
I'll at least let's play it up, but I might stream just because it's the same thing, really. Like, you can watch me play it, and then I can also just upload the thing after.
Double the content, double the fun, double the time locked inside, because Cyberpunk's gonna be fucking rad.
Locked inside the Weebology freaking echo chamber, boys.
Well, thanks you guys for coming to class. If you want to listen with your eyes and your ears, hello. Check us out on YouTube. Yeah. Give us a like, comment, subscribe. Give us a comment of anything you want to watch. We had some nice comments on Instagram this past week. Made me feel like a fuzzy boy. Very happy.
Deimos, I believe.
Deimos. Yes, I think that's right. If you want to listen with just your ears and not your eyes, get yourself some of that audio goodness. Go anywhere you get your podcast fix. Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Google, CastBox, Pandora, Amazon, all that good stuff. Leave us a 5-star or you know what? 5-star and a word review on Apple so we can pop them on other people's recommended so they get all the anime goodness. Instagram, @weebology.podcast. We got memes on news, and sometimes giveaways. We are posting memes again, as in I found a meme and I posted it the other day. That's the activity we're giving to these people. Twitter, weebologyp. Do we tweet there? Really?
Really, I'm just tweeting about like releasing episodes and then occasionally a rando question.
Well, then yeah, get on there and get updated.
I feel like if you had more followers, I might tweet more.
Maybe you would. So get on there if you want to see those updates. If you want to just drop us a old school line saying hi, we should watch this show. You guys are doing the best job. Weebologypodcast@gmail.com. If you want to give us a monetary love, only if you can. Patreon.com/Weebology. $1 gets you into the Discord. $3 and up gets you into the syllabus sidebar, or sometimes anime, sometimes not. Lo-fi.
Bonus podcast.
Lo-fi high fives on the podcast.
Yes.
We just dropped a thick one this past week because we kind of were a little off for the holidays.
Flaking.
But that was a really fun one.
Those come with us some dope tier gifts. So
Yes.
It's not like we're just taking your money for nothing. We're giving you some sick shit back.
I want to get that ready to go by Christmas. I actually updated the design to have the Japanese underneath.
Ooh, that's so hot.
It's I'm gonna post it in the Discord soon. So I think by the time our patron Discord folk listen to this week, it should be in the Discord, and they'll be happy with the little the logo update for sure. So,
cool, man.
Yeah, I think. Honestly, that's it. I want to go learn some super tier magic.
Sounds good.
Until I can figure that shit out, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
And this has been Weebology. Deuces. Fall down. Black go. I'm going to learn this shit. I want to.